about it, okay? I was timid, but timidity on a motorcycle is a good thing, okay? I would rather be timid on a motorcycle that has more power than I can handle than to be bold on a motorcycle that I think I can handle almost the moment I get on it, okay? This is another fallacy, I think, that people are going to run into with this bike. They're going to say, oh, it's low in power, so I'm not going to run into trouble if I wind open the throttle and I race through all 6 gears, which is a major mistake because, trust me, that's how you get killed on a motorcycle. It's just a question of how fast you get killed, okay? You might only get to 100 miles an hour on a Ninja 300 in 20 seconds versus 10 or 12 on a leader bike, okay? It's not how fast you got there that gets you killed. It's the fact that you were there and can't handle it that gets you killed. It's not the power. I've never seen anyone thrown over a bike backwards, okay? I've never seen anyone on a bike that had so much power and they had so little skill that they looped the bike. That is nonsense. I'm not saying it would never happen. I'm saying it's highly unlikely to happen. What is much more likely to happen and can happen on any motorcycle is you go flying through traffic, you go flying down the road, you get into corners, you need to stop, you need to do something, and you can't. That is the much more likely scenario. You can't handle it at a certain speed, on a certain road, in certain conditions. It isn't going to matter whether it's a 600-pound bike or a 300-pound bike, okay? Because you're not trying to pick the bike up at that point. The problem is you're trying to keep from running into something at that point. And if you don't have the skills to avoid, to brake early, you don't have a sense to brake early, you don't have a sense to slow down, you don't have a sense to stay out of trouble on a bike, it isn't going to matter whether the bike has 50 horsepower or 500 horsepower. The big issue is you don't have the sense to stay out of trouble on it, and it will get you into trouble, okay? If it can go 100 miles an hour, there will be people who wreck it at 100 miles an hour, or 90, or 80, or 60, or 40, okay? So don't let the fact that it doesn't have as much power as, say, an R1 or an R6 lead you to think that it's safer than an R1 or an R6. Because you're talking about shades of gray when you talk about that. It's a motorcycle, it has 2 wheels, it's not safe, period. It's just a question of how much more safe is it than an R1 because it has less power. My perspective is not much. You still have to race the R1 to get to that power. You have to rev the R1 to get to that power. You have to twist your throttle and run that RPMs up to get to that power. The fact that it doesn't exist on a Ninja 300 doesn't make it safe because it doesn't need that power to go fast enough to kill you. Have I made my point? Okay? This is the other half of the equation. This is the yin and the yang. This is why you have people saying that the bike is more than fast enough, has more than enough power, is faster than 95% of the cars. It's because they don't need 150 horsepower to go fast enough to get themselves killed. That's the other half of it, okay? It is more than fast enough to get you killed. There's no question. I still say it's slow as shit, and the reason I say this is because I don't want to wait 20 seconds. I want to be there at my speed, at whatever speed I want, in 2 or 3 seconds, maybe 5 seconds at the most. The bike with 330 horsepower will never be able to do that for me, ever. Okay, by the time it starts to think about moving, I want to be there. That's the reason for me it's way too slow. Okay, so I think this is probably about 15 minutes now, but let me make the point here. Ultimately, what you want, and I would want, is to have it accelerate quickly enough where I no longer feel the need to accelerate, and I tell them I'm happy with the acceleration within 5 seconds, okay? After 5 seconds is too late. 10 seconds is damn too late, okay? That's the big issue. Now, sure, you don't want to be doing 100 miles an hour in 1 second. Nobody really needs to be doing that, on the street especially. But I don't want it to take 60 seconds to get to 100 either, okay? I don't necessarily think I'm going to do 100 miles an hour on the street, but if it takes a minute to get to 100, how long does it take to get to 50? That's what you got to look at. If I can do the quarter mile at 12 seconds on a motorcycle and a track speed is 120 miles an hour, that tells me it doesn't take long to get to 60, which is something that I'm much more likely to do. I'm much more likely to take that bike from 0 to 60 than I am to take it from 0 to 120, okay? If it takes 2 minutes to hit 100, okay, it's going to take 45 seconds or so to get to 75, and it's going to take 30 seconds, it's pretty close, 15 seconds to get to 60. That's too much time, in my opinion, way too much time for a motorcycle to get to 60 miles an hour. That's car time. I don't want to waste time with something that will take 16 seconds to get to 60 miles an hour, and then it doesn't have a roof, and then it doesn't have a trunk, and then I'm freezing my ass off in the rain. Why am I bothering with this vehicle? Sole reason becomes the mileage. That, in my opinion, is the only redeeming feature of this bike. But let me make a long story short story very interesting. You can take this bike, if you focus on the gas mileage, fine, okay? It might make sense. I still say there are a lot of other bikes that are smaller, lighter, more upright, cheaper than a Ninja 300, okay? But fine, focus on the gas mileage, fine, okay? For any other reason, this bike does not make sense. Not even as a starter bike, in my opinion. I would prefer or put or suggest at least an FJ6R, at least. I would rather see somebody go back in time, grab a 25-year-old VF500 than to ride this bike as a starter bike. GPZ 550 than to ride this bike as a starter bike. This bike is too slow to ride in the street, in my opinion. It's just too slow. It's a beach bike, in my opinion, at most. A scooter with sport fairings. I hope I've made that point because I'm really tired of hearing this crap about this bike or about other bikes. The crap in favor of this bike and the crap against other bikes, most of which are much better for almost everyone, almost anyone, than this bike. Okay, I'm trying to wrap up this video, but I got a couple of points here, which this is like the 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th time. This is two hard points to wrap up. Okay, let me just lay out what they are. The first is the question, debate, given two motorcycles and a guy or a new rider with no experience. Is it or is it not better to put that rider on a bike that has virtually no power than to put that rider on a bike that has some power, a lot of power, or a hell of a lot of power, because they're safer on a bike that has virtually no power? That's one debate. I think that's a fool's gold kind of debate, because I don't think that if it's unsafe for them to ride a bike that has 100 horsepower, let's say, okay, that it will be safe for them if the bike only has 30. I think that's a fallacy, a false premise, let's put it that way. The second issue is it better to buy a bike like the Ninja 300 than a bike like a R1 or R6 or CX6R or FC8, let's just say a whole bunch, even a Busa or the X14 car, is it better to buy one than to buy a bike with significantly more power? And you can break that question down into whether you're a noob, whether you've been riding for a while, whether you're getting older, and you want a bike that's not so heavy. You know, you can, your knees are starting to get a little bit gimpy, and you don't want to deal with either pick up a heavy bike or a bike with low pegs, or high pegs, I should say, and low clip-ons. I say that the fundamental problem with this premise is that the Ninja 300 has so little power that it almost doesn't matter. It's not a feasible motorcycle for that reason alone. You can find bikes that have a reasonable size and weight, that have reasonable foot pegs and reasonable handlebars. Or you can add reasonable handlebars and reasonable foot pegs to them. Out of the 20 bikes that I would definitely buy before the Ninja 300, given the power issue, I can fix them or get them or select the ones that the seating position is not an issue and enjoy the power. And the weight, to me, is not that much of an issue because I don't intend to carry the bike. Okay? I don't intend to pick up the whole, I'm not going to pick up a 350-pound motorcycle either. I'm going to lift it back onto two wheels. There's a difference. Okay? And I don't want to be dropping it often, so lifting it is not a big problem. I don't want to be pushing it often, so pushing it is not a big problem. Okay? It has a motor. I don't want to be pushing it. The issue is I don't want to be running out of gas or trying to bump start it up a hill or pick it up and put it in the back of a van, okay? These are not what I'm going to do as an intelligent person. The answer to these problems is not to get a bike that only weighs 375 pounds versus 600 pounds. Okay? And there's a lot of options in bikes that weigh 500 pounds. That have a lot more power than the Ninja 300. So I think those are false premise questions, false choices, false scenario questions. So I'm not going to ride my motorcycle in an unsafe manner, and I'm not going to assume that someone else is going to ride it in an unsafe manner just because they have no riding experience. Okay? If they do ride it in an unsafe manner, I'm not going to blame the danger they get into as a result on the fact that it has 150 horsepower versus 30 horsepower. Okay? I don't see people walking around going, oh, it's a great thing that I dropped my Ninja 300. Oh, it's a great thing that I wrecked my Ninja 300. I do hear a lot of people saying, oh, it would suck so much worse if it weighed 600 pounds, or oh, I would have gotten so much more trouble in this accident if it had 120 horsepower. Just utter shit. That's utter bullshit. Why assume that you would be in so much more worse in a position just because you were on a bike that had 3 times the power or weighed almost twice as much? Why? That's called self-justification. It's a good thing that I didn't buy that bike that has 4 times the power because I've wrecked the bike that has 1/4 the power already. No. It's a bad thing that you didn't learn how to ride your bike, regardless, and you wrecked it. It's not a good thing that you bought a bike that weighs 375 pounds versus one that weighs 600 pounds because you just dropped it. No. It's a bad thing that you didn't learn how to ride the bike without dropping it, or you don't care enough about not dropping it to not drop it. That is the problem. Sex with an ugly woman.